Hello my fellow hammerheads and welcome to the third and last lore part for the Broken Realms Morathi. In this video we will cover the dramatis personae and information you need to fully appreciate the lore behind the first book in the series. But before we begin, I recommend that you buy and read the book and the stories for yourself, because only this way we can support Games Workshop, the Black Library, their authors, and you can enjoy the unabridged stories for yourself. As always, I will provide the faction-specific terminology in the description box down below. As for every new wonderful being watching this, as every video could be someone's first, these lore videos are meant to be roleplayed. I don the mantle of a traveler who gathers information about the lore and welcomes you in my newly set up Hammerhead Inn, which is located somewhere in the mortal realms. Now, I won't waste any more of your time. Let's begin. Hello my friend. Welcome back to the Hammerhead Inn. Please sit down. I already prepared your drink. I will be right with you. Now, where did we leave the story last time? Ah yes, I remember. Back in Hagg Nar, Morathi and the daughters of Cain prepared the grand ritual for her to become a goddess, securing specific locations in Ulgu and sacrificing their special victims. Meanwhile, the Idoneth, under the rule of High King Volturnus, attacked Hagg Nar and flooded the defenders and even breached the Khruthú itself, the Underhall in which the Máthcoir was located. As the ritual was successful and the Máthcoir destroyed by the hands of Volturnus, not only did Morathi achieve her goal, but another being was born into existence out of the Dark Prince's essence. Glavia Sinhart attacked the shores together with the Lord of Pain Gasterix and their combined Slaaneshi armies, but quickly abandoned the fight as the being was hurled away from the temple. Morathi Cain did make peace with the Idoneth and offered the High King an alliance. This is where we will continue the story. As with every plan born in the mind of Morathi, this story has many layers and facets, so please bear with me when I will tell you about the free city of Anvilguard and the realm of fire, Aqshy. Under constant attack by the agents of chaos, Anvilguard is heavily defended by sea and land. Peculiar that the majority of the citizens are of elven kin. Specifically the Order Serpentis, who specialize in capturing the wild beasts roaming their surroundings. For that it is called the City of Scales. Inside are 4 realm gates protected by the Anvils of the Heldenhammer, which you may recall is the stormhost of Kaiser Van Brecht, and their Stormkeep is called the Black Nexus. The Anvilguardians are hardy folks, but a few months ago many prominent persons were abducted or killed. Leaders, generals, fleet masters, merchants, priests, you name it. Many believed it to be the Grots or Skaven, or even the Stormcast Eternals who would purge the faithless and the corrupt. A few uttered the name which was actually responsible for this: the Blackscale Coil, a syndicate of secretive criminals weaving their plots from the shadowed corners. No one knows who is part of the Coil, as they never meet in person. Their leader is called Visarhain, or Sovereign in the common tongue. They are mighty, but not all-powerful, as many still see Sigmar as the surest way to power. But even the God King's witch hunters were unable to find any traces which could have led to the discovery of the Blackscale Coil. Their forces are mainly mind control fanatics who had greater numbers than the Free Guild posted there. The magics used were intricate and subtle, but strong. Their first goal was one thing: spreading fear. Meanwhile in Azyr, Kaiser Wambrecht had been reforged, and he brought the grave tidings of the disaster in the 8 Points directly to Sigmar. The forces of chaos were able to siphon the souls of the Stormcast Eternals to their chaos shrines, unable to return back to Azyr. But instead of helping the survivors with the dispatched warriors, he made his way to the Black Nexus, the Stormkeep inside Anvilguard. Merciless, he gathered his agents and smashed down doors of the city's most notorious criminals and dragged them into the streets just to chain and guide them to the dungeons of the Black Nexus to interrogate. Many went mad, but Wambrecht uncovered one name: Blackscale Coil. He discovered the magics used on those poor souls, as their blood turned to acid to kill them before any more information could be leaked. But before the Lord Veritant could act, Morathi Khaine and a retinue of Khainite warriors stood at the gates of Anvilguard. Never before has been an event in which the Scáthborn were seen in the open. Taking their time and walking slowly through the streets, their path was akin to a large snake, winding and curving through Anvilguard. The citizens were afraid and in awe at the same time, but everyone knew Morathi came as a conqueror. Well, everyone except the leadership of the City of Scales. They were relieved, and were sure that this ally of the God King Sigmar himself would help them root out the Blackscale Coil. Only Kaiser Wambrecht had his suspicions. With his inquisitive nature, he questioned Morathi about the events of the 8 Points, and she reassured him that all went well, but was not sure if Wambrecht was himself after all those reforgings he went through, as she now questioned him about his treatment of his prisoners beneath the Black Nexus. Every attendant was shocked, as it is against the law of Azyr to talk about the reforgings and their speculative altering effects on the Stormcast Eternals. But Wambrecht, in his stoic nature, just responded that his mandate has no limits when it came to sedition or heresy. And he did not trust Morathi. Even as everyone applauded her, Wambrecht tasted the deception in the air. It is no coincidence that she appeared in Anvilguard, just as the city needed someone to save it. With no proof, he welcomed her to the City of Scales, and departed coldly. Outside Anvilguard, a billowing mist rolled across the sea and towards the city. The citizens did not suspect a thing, as mist was a part of their daily life. Only as the shroud settled with an eerie precision over Blackscale Harbor, the inhabitants realized that something was amiss. Those who walked into the mist felt a chill deep down their bones, and a feeling like icy seawater is about to fill their lungs and drown them on land. The elite troops of the Free Guild Guard, called the Charwind Rangers, and their comrades fired into the mist, but to no avail. You might look for the needle in the haystack. You have a better chance of finding it than to hit an enemy hiding in dense fog. Clad in the deep burgundy of the city's elven auxiliaries came reinforcements. So the Charwind Rangers believed. To their horror, their reinforcements were the enemy, and the Rangers were slaughtered where they stood. The elves were led by sorceress Druza Kreth, who observed the bloodletting from the back of her black dragon. Inch by bloody inch, the Rangers sold their lives dearly, but ultimately they were driven back, and the sea seemed to swallow them whole, as their blast powder got sodden and torches sputtered. Druza Kreth is the voice of the Sovereign. She knows the true identity of the Sovereign, and ruled over Anvilguard behind the scenes to such an effectiveness that only a handful of people saw her face. Until now. She is a master of mind-leashing enchantments and uses it to spread her whisperers around the city, both thralls and fellow members of the Blackscale Coil. But as usual, I digress. But I thought this would be as much as a fun fact for you. Back in the Stormkeep of the Anvils of the Heldenhammer, Kaiser Wambrecht's suspicion was confirmed, as he believed in no coincidences. Morathi's appearance and the attack of the elves was a plan of the, still in his mind, High Oracle of Khane. Even though spies spread misinformation about an attack of the undead or Tzeentchian worshippers, Wambrecht would find proof of Morathi's duplicity, and she would face judgment. Outside the Black Nexus, the elves of Drusar-Kreth, which called themselves the Coven of the Serpent's Blood, waited in the mist. Together with an ally of Morathis, the Fleet Master of the Black Ark who helped to defend Hagg Nar. Both were told not to slay a single Stormcast Eternal. Otherwise, one of them could send word to the God King and come back with reinforcements. The elves were ruthless in their endeavor, as they managed to capture the Stormcasts without killing a single one of them. Realizing that they were outnumbered, the Stormcast Eternals had to fall back into the safety of the Black Nexus. As Kaiser Wambrecht was on his way to the Dauntless Hall, basically the City Hall, he gathered survivors of the Charwind Rangers and other citizens of the city, including many Duardin who wanted nothing more than revenge. But their hope of retribution was shattered like a mirror, as the Coven of the Serpent's Blood revealed themselves. Uncountable numbers of elves surrounded the Black Nexus and gathered beneath the banner depicted with the traditional Kraken's head of Anvilguard, but defaced with an angular elven rune. Anvilguard would be no more, as this is now part of the empire of Morathi Khane. The city would now be known as Har Kuron. Wambrecht had to escape the situation, and the surviving Duardin were the key, as they knew of the underground tunnels built beneath the city. Leaving behind a contingent of free guild, he and the other survivors were led by the Warden King. The enemy had no sense for underground tunnels and sealed off many entrances, but left their most ferocious beast behind. Hydras and carrot-bisses came running at them, and after many lives lost, the beasts were killed and burned. For a long time they were underground, so long that night fell upon the city. Observing the Black Nexus from a safe distance, Wambrecht saw that the elves secured the 4 realm gates, and no one set foot on this side of the gates. He knew not if someone was coming, or if Morathi was successful in isolating Har Kuron from the west of Akshi's 3 cities. He had to act quick, as the walls of the Stormkeep were hammered with scores of bolt throwers. The Black Nexus, like other Stormkeeps, was more than a simple fort. Impervious to ordinary assaults, its enchanted walls spewed death from countless ballistas. Wambrecht and his fellow warriors arrived, and Kreth's spies immediately brought word of the loyalists. The sorceress did not trust this development. The Sigmar loyalists were outmatched, and she knew that Wambrecht was smarter than that, to throw away their lives for nothing. Kreth was sure that the Lord Veritant had a plan. Temporarily abandoning the siege of the Black Nexus, knowing that there will be no Sigmarite reinforcements, the elves readied themselves to capture the Stormcast Eternals alive and sacrifice the rest to Morathi Khane. At first, the forces of Wambrecht used their superior tactics of shooting. The Judicators focus-fired the enemy leaders in hope to break the Mind-Leash enchantments. The advanced range of the Skybolt bows proved useful. This had to end quickly, and Khruthú sent her troops forward, and one by one the Stormcast Eternals were subdued and shortly after surrounded. East of the battlefield, a fiery glow appeared, and a smoke-belching shape on piston limbs walked towards the Black Nexus. What Khruthú didn't know was that the other survivors took control of the walking fortress known as Old Firesnout. A Titanic Warmaschine, bristled with weapons and capable of carrying hundreds of soldiers safely to battle. For a moment there was hope, and the Anvils of the Heldenhammer used the confusion of the elves and Ruza Khruthú's efforts to steady her troops to cut a bloody path to the elven leader. The endeavor was cut short as a slender shadow fell upon the battlefield. The Shadow Queen descended on wings of darkness upon Old Firesnout, ripping it apart like a child would tear a napkin in anger, killing the crew with 1, 2, 3 stabs with her spear heartrender. Old Firesnout fell guideless to the ground and crushed everything under it to the dirt. At the same time, Khainite warriors appeared out of the shadows and finished the job. In triumph, black-winged Khinerai circled the Black Nexus as Morathi walked towards Vembrecht, proclaiming that Hardcuron is hers and resistance is futile. The sword strike of the Lord Veritant was unbelievably fast, but he was stopped by the Shadow Queen, and as her serpentine form enveloped and choked him, unable to breathe, his world was covered in darkness. Usually I would skip this part, as it is again a retelling by Vembrecht, but it is too important not to tell. Alive and captured by Morathi's allies, Vembrecht's discomfort was clear and grew with every passing moment. In death, he could have warned Sigmar of Morathi's betrayal and her plans to build an empire. Suspended in mid-air, in a shadowy cell, Vembrecht was held captive, wearing nothing but sodden rags. His captor bound him with a craskopod instead of metal, a beast with a strong, paralyzing venom. He was a prisoner of the Scourge privateers. Challenging the fleet master to kill him, they argued until they were interrupted by an attack from an unknown force. Carefully, the fleet master drew his sword as one of his crewmates stumbled into the cell, torn open from belly to throat. Vembrecht only saw a bloody red claw which seized the fleet master by the throat and jerked him outside. With a sound of tearing flesh, his screams were silenced. Vembrecht was freed, and he armed himself with the weapons of the dead elves and immediately started searching for a small vessel for him to escape with. His rescuer left a bloody trail in the wake of his jailbreak. No one was spared. The only glimpse he saw of the person was a pair of bat-like wings, and then it was gone. He was all alone on a dead ship. Sadly, I never uncovered how he escaped, but as soon as I find out, I will tell you his story. Before I forget, I hope you remember the Herald of the Dark Prince, Glavia Sinhart. She and her cohort followed the protean shape to its impact point, and every witness of it wept tears of joy, as they would soon look upon the face of their god. Hedonites gathered from everywhere as a winged form so beautiful and terrible emerged. Many died on the spot as it spoke its first profane words. What has Morathi done? What will this birth of a new shard of the Dark Prince mean to all of us? Only the future will show us. But for now, Morathi's story ends here. I will be on my way to gather more information for you, so please be patient. I hope my attempts to prepare you for the upcoming events were successful. I'm keen to know what you think about everything I told you. Just leave me a note under my table. I would appreciate it if you would tell your friends of this place. It is a deep desire of mine to tell these stories to as many friends as possible. I would be in your debt. I hope you will lend your ear to my stories again. I have many more for you to quench your thirst for knowledge. You just have to listen for the bell, and you will know that I'm here again, waiting for you. Have a good night, friend, and please, stay fantastic. Bye.